Tony D and Little Joan with a Piney podcast special of sorts and a screenwriter's take because this video pretty much combines all the things I love: movies, South Jersey, and legends. It's nuts. I kind of can't believe I'm even doing this video. I'm going to talk about a movie that was shot locally called Menantico Blues. Menantico Blues, it's called. And it was shot in 2019. Somebody locally turned me on to it. And it's about legends in South Jersey, but it goes way, way deeper than the Jersey Devil. It goes to an even more local legend called Lamb Legs, which I had never heard of until recently. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to analyze the movie and review it. I'll do a non-spoiler and then a spoiler review. If you want to see the movie, you can see it for nothing. It's at right here, menanticoblues.com. Just do a search for that, and it'll come right up. You can watch the whole damn thing. You can watch it on YouTube. So let's get into it. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. Links in the description. Comedy Horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys, books 1 through 14, available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. And like in the Pineys, the movie makers here do something very similar where they're taking local legends and they're incorporating them into the story. So, first I'm going to give you the non-spoiler review of the movie. Understand that I'm very biased towards the movie. I love this stuff. So, take it with a grain of salt, because I'm going to give it a lot better recommendation than maybe somebody else would. But I'll say this. The movie is pretty good, I think. I think it's pretty good. It has amazing sweeping shots of the Pine Barrens, particularly the blue holes. That's what Menantico Blues refers to. Beautiful shots of the blue holes and the Pine Barrens. It looks very professional, the movie. It's a combination of a documentary and a narrative. And it's really difficult to tell which part is real and which part they just made up for the movie. I kind of can't tell you. I'm still trying to pick it apart. I do know that Lamb Legs was a folktale. Someone told me about it, and it's been in Weird New Jersey in one issue 45 of Weird New Jersey. So far, that's all I can find about it. I'm trying to sort of independently verify the legend, but it seems to be a legit folktale, as legit as they get. And so it's based partially on that, partially on some real crime events. One in particular I know is real. In 1971, there was basically a satanic murder in the Vineland Millville area, where a guy decided he would kill himself in a ritual ceremony because he thought Satan would put him in charge of a legion of 40 demons, and then he'd come back to life, I don't know, and rule the earth or something. And his two friends helped him kind of like tie himself up, according to reports, and then he either jumped into the lake or one of the blue holes, or these guys pushed him in, either off a boat or off a dock or something, and he drowned. And then they found his body 3 days later. There was a big trial. The two guys who either helped him or killed him went to prison until 1978. One killed himself afterwards, and the other became religious. So, weird, right? And that kind of ties into the movie. And I kind of can't tell you about the plot of the movie without telling you some of these tales. But that ties into the movie because there are satanic cults. And then during the course of the movie, they keep cutting away to interviews with people who supposedly live in the area. But I can't tell which are actors and which are not. One of the actors is Hacksaw Jim Duggan, who is a professional wrestler. And I think he used to live in New Jersey, but I'm not sure. I know I read his write up. He was arrested in New Jersey for DUI with the Iron Sheik. So, and he's known for carrying a 2x4. And then in the movie, he mentions attacking someone with a 2x4, which is very amusing. Lamb legs, in fact. He supposedly fought lamb legs. And then his name is Jim Duggan in the movie. But I couldn't find anything in Jim Dugan's write-up that it seems like in the movie he's a regular guy who gets fired from the glassworks and then starts a construction company and then just happens to be part of the events. But that isn't what the wrestler did. So I guess they made all that up, but they used his name. They used his real name. Confusing, but kind of cool. I kind of like doing that myself. If I use real names, I don't usually use. That's why I made up a bunch of names for the Galloways. You can get yourself in trouble, but obviously Jim Dugan is fine with that. Anyhow, so let me give you the non-spoiler sort of breakdown of the movie. You've got this documentary feel to it where they show you a few incidents that happened in the Pine Barrens, but these then tie into what's supposed to be a narrative or a dramatization of another event, which I think might be real life because they do tag it to 1995 for some reason. That maybe real life event is a group of hunters who go out into the Pine Barrens to do some deer hunting, and they encounter a group of Pineys, evil Pineys, called the Lamberts. The Lamberts are up to no good. They kill people and deal drugs and assault people, and they may have killed prostitutes. But I don't know if any of that is true or they made that up for the movie. I haven't done a complete deep dive into it. I'm looking into it, but this stuff is 50 years old, so it's, well, not that old. For 95, it'd be 30 years old. Haven't really found anything yet, but I assume some of this is based on truths. It sounds real anyway. So the dramatization part is that a group of hunters end up confronting the Lamberts because the Lamberts were known to kill local dogs for some reason. I think maybe to eat them, but they don't really say that in the movie. So this hunter's got a beloved dog. The Lamberts kill him or kidnap him, and I don't know what they did with him. They don't show it. And then during the confrontation, the Lamberts and the hunters end up in a shootout where a bunch of them die, and then some of them are injured, and there's another character in it known as the Pizza Saint. His name is David Webb. This guy sounds like a real dude, and in fact, I used to deliver pizzas in the late 80s, and this guy supposedly delivered pizzas for 20 years in the Millville, Vineland area. They called him the Pizza Saint. Now, I don't remember the term Pizza Saint, but the David Webb name sounds super familiar to me. It's possible in my travels I heard that name if he's a real guy, or I might just be remembering something else. So, the plot of the movie also segues into this local legend called Lamb Legs. Lamb Legs is some sort of urban legend, like regional just to Millville, pretty much, or Vineland, Millville, that there's a deformed homeless guy who has lamb legs, and he can run really fast, and he drinks antifreeze to forget his troubles. And so during the course of the movie, he keeps showing up kind of like the Jersey Devil. So that's the kind of movie it is. It's kind of a schlocky horror movie on one point for the narrative part, but then it's also a documentary where they're doing all these interviews. But I have no idea I don't think any of these people are real. They may be based on real people. One of them might be real because there's the game warden character, and then later they interview a guy who's now retired who's the game warden character. I don't know. I'd like to talk to the guys who made this movie and find out which part of this is real. I think they made up, I'm going to say, about 80% of it. About 80%. So, is it worth watching? Well, I think it is, but I love this stuff. And I'm mainly watching it for more fodder for the Pineys. You know, I'm trying to pick apart the stuff that's real and what's not. Definitely the satanic cult is real, and you'll definitely see something about that in a not too distant future in the Pineys. But I'm not so sure about Lamb Legs. There is a mention of him, the Legend of Lamb Legs, in Weird New Jersey number 45. I found out. I don't think I have that issue. I might go online and purchase it. Can't seem to find anything else other than this movie about lamb legs. So it may just be, and then a few people at shows have come up to me and told me about lamb legs. But I'm not sure if they saw this movie. One of them at least did, because he told me about the movie too. Or, and they heard it from somebody who saw the movie or whatever. But one thing they definitely talk about is the satanic cult that used to be around Millville and Vineland. But anyhow, overall, I would say, you know, for a low-budget movie, it's pretty good. They've got nice sweeping shots of the Pine Barrens for the opening. Looks very professional. Very, a lot of production value, as we say, in that. Looks really nice. The blue holes look amazing in that footage. Nice job there, really. The acting is mostly okay. Mostly okay. Because they're doing it documentary style for most of it, you know, it comes off pretty good. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, who's clearly doing a character, I think, is basically a professional wrestler, you know, acting at sort of that Dave Bautista Rock level. Like, he's pretty good. You know, I don't know if he'd be able to do it. He's not in any of the more dramatic scenes or the action scenes, but you know. And then they have like another actor play him as a younger guy. Yeah. So overall, I would watch it. I think if you like this kind of stuff, the urban legends and whatnot, I think you would like it. I'll admit that some of the pacing's a little slow in some of the scenes, and it feels like they kind of couldn't make up their mind whether they would do a dramatization or a documentary. I think they should have went full bore documentary, but maybe there's not enough material on Lamb Legs that they couldn't really do it, and they decided just to go with the fictional end, possibly so they wouldn't be sued by, say, the Lamberts, if they are actually a group of real Pineys, and a few other people who are mentioned in it. So, but here, I'll read you the write-up. Local interviews recall bizarre sightings in South Jersey during the 70s, and more reported decades later, including gruesome tale from a group of friends hunting near Menantico Ponds on December of 1995. Based on the urban legend of Lamb Legs, a half-man, half-lamb figure who roamed the blue holes and wooded outskirts of Millville, New Jersey. So there's a cool poster for him. Blending a potent mix of dark comedy, folklore with elements of visceral horror, Menantico Blues dares you to explore the darkest, most mystifying regions of South Jersey's backwoods. So there's Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and I don't know any of the other actors, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It's a low budget affair, but it's not bad. Not bad at all. I think the pacing could have been kicked up a little. If I'm gonna criticize it, the music's nice. They play some good music in it. Good job getting local bands or local music, I think, in this. So a lot to offer here if you like this stuff. If you don't like, if you're going to compare it to like, some high end Hollywood big budget thing, I think you're doing too much. But I think they do a pretty good job. I think most of the pacing's fine. All right, so that concludes my non-spoiler review. Now I'm going to get into the spoilers and break it down. It's a little complicated, which would be another minor criticism. So what they want you to know before the wind-up of the end of the movie, the big scene, is first about the satanic murders in 1971. So they recreate that, and they talk about actually, I think it opens with the 1983 incident, which again, I don't know if that's real or fake. I know the 1971 is real. The 1983 one, basically 3 people go into the Pine Barrens to hang out at the Blue Holes, and they're horribly murdered. And then the question is, who murdered them? Although it's not a big question, they seem to sort of fade into the background. They kind of get mentioned one more time. So the reveal eventually, I think, and it's a little confusing, but is that you think it's going to be Lamb Legs is the murderer. The deformed homeless man with lamb legs, deformed hands. He drinks antifreeze to forget his troubles, and he can run really fast, and he's pretty strong. But they reveal, I think, that it's really the Lamberts who kill them because they're just murderous psychopaths. And what the Lamberts do early in the movie is they murder a bunch of satanic cultists who seem way too friendly for satanic cultists. And they just murder them just to get their evil masks. And then they wear them and kill people like they always do. And then the idea is that the Lamberts were trying to throw people off their trail to blame their murders on the cultists. Right? So, not the stupidest idea in the world for criminals to do. Probably partially true. Something I could see them doing, a group of criminals or a group of criminal Pineys in the woods doing on the spur of the moment. I can't see them, keeping up an elaborate pretext for very long, but I could see them doing that. So they show you the 1971 murder of this dude. He thought he would do this ritual sacrifice of himself, drown himself in the blue hole, and then he would be brought back to life to lead 40 legions of demons. The cops are not sure if he killed himself or the 2 guys with him killed him, or it was a sort of a combination of the both because this guy who did it seemed to volunteer to be killed because he truly believed in sacrificing himself, that if he could just kill himself, everything would be fine. So yeah, don't harm yourself, kids. He, I think, was clearly mentally ill. So he had his friends tie him up. He took like a cinder block and then either jumped into the blue hole or they pushed him. No one's really sure. 3 days later, his body came up, and the 2 guys involved, his 2 friends, were sentenced for the murder. They served about 7 years, got out in 78. One killed himself, and the other went on to find Jesus. So they sort of recreate that portion of it, the beginning of the movie, kind of the first act. The first act is kind of all this wind-up. So they tell you about the satanic guys. They tell you about the Lamberts, the crazy Pineys. And then they introduce the hunters who are just sort of on a deer hunting trip. And you're kind of like, well, who are these guys? Because that's presented more as a narrative, and the rest are all presented. Oh, and they introduce Lamb Legs. And they're interviewing people. And then somewhere around, I'll say, a third of the way into the second act, they start to focus more and more on the hunters. And so the hunters have a conversation with the Lamberts because one of the hunters loves his dog, and the Lamberts are known to kill dogs, apparently. And he yells at them, and they get off his property. But for a minute, it looks like they're going to shoot him, but then they don't. Eventually, the movie leads to the big confrontation, which is the hunters versus the Lamberts. They also explain that the Lamberts are really bad. They show them killing people. They show them possibly they got a prostitute hooked on drugs and then made her take care of Lamb Legs, who it's implied Lamb Legs is actually, he's not homeless. He's one of the Lamberts. He's just super deformed. But that the prostitute felt sorry for Lamb Legs and let him go. And you think maybe the Lamb Legs is the bad guy in it. But then later, during the confrontation with the hunters, the patriarch of the Lamberts hides in the woods with a sniper rifle while the other guys have a shootout. He sort of tries to pick people off, but Lamb Legs shows up at a key moment and kills two of the Lamberts, the patriarch and another guy, to save some of the hunters. And they actually interview a game warden, a retired game warden, and they imply he's the game warden that's in the movie. Might even be the same guy now that I think about it. But the character's wearing sunglasses and a hat, and the real guy wasn't wearing anything. I don't know if it's the same guy or not. They don't really make it clear. They give you names, like they tell you Hacksaw Jim Duggan, right? Well, they don't say Hacksaw, they say Jim Duggan, like he's a local guy, and they have a background for him, and it's like, well, this documentary isn't real, so what are you doing? And then one of the characters is Dave Webb, the pizza saint. And he was a pizza delivery driver in the area for over 20 years. And he had a reputation for helping people and giving pizza to the homeless guys. And he may or may not have helped Lamb Legs. And eventually at the end of the movie, he's killed by two junkies just to pretend to have a problem, and Dave stops to help him and they kill him, which is very sad. I'm not sure why they included it unless it's true. It feels true because it's so sort of clunky, but it might not be true. It might be totally made up. The name Dave Webb sounds incredibly familiar to me, and I did deliver pizzas in that era, so or right before that era, and it's possible I heard the name. It's possible before. There's also other crazy monsters or legends mentioned in the beginning other than Lamb Legs. The mountain bike man, the lizard man, and of course the pizza saint, which I don't know if any of them are real. Lamb Legs, I think, is a real legend because there was an article in Weird New Jersey that I'm trying to track down, Weird New Jersey 45, and a couple of people mentioned him at shows, but I'm not sure if they heard it from the movie or what. So the payoff of the movie is the big shootout at the end, and Lamb Legs is the good guy. And then the implication is the Lamberts killed those people in 1983, but they were wearing the Satanist mask because they killed a bunch of Satanists just to get their mask. So it's a mixture of stuff, and it's kind of convoluted, kind of tough to parse. Like, on the one hand, I'm watching it, and I want to believe it's a documentary with all kinds of cool new information for me, but it's clear that it's not. It's clear there's a lot of fiction in it, which is fine, but I would say that in some aspects, the fiction undermines the narrative. Because if it's not real, then, well, you might as well just make up more of it, you know? So, like, I do the same thing, so I'm not trying to be hypocritical about it, but, you know, one of the things you have to do in terms of decision making is you have to decide what part of the legends are going to work and what part, you know, will service the story or not. So I think a lot of it, and look, the final fight is pretty good. I mean, it has a beautiful opening, and the shootout is pretty awesome. Shootout is pretty awesome. Well done. I think the whole thing is pretty well done overall. I just think the pacing is a little off for all the interviews, and I think the interviews probably go on a little too long because they don't all tie in. And I would like to see it, like there's no definitive answers for some of the characters. They're loose threads that are still sort of hanging out there. I would have liked to have seen, if you're going to fictionalize it, just give us like those loose threads. Just tell us. But it's pretty good, I say. But again, I'm really biased towards this, so I don't know how other people will react. I don't really have a good distance from this one. But I liked it. I would have been perfectly fine renting this, streaming it, but it's free. Can't beat that. Can't beat that. So nice job, guys. And the cast is pretty good too. I'd say, yeah, cast is pretty on point. Now it's a little easier on the cast because a lot of it's interviews, but the guys who are the hunters and the crazy Pineys, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Not bad. So what part's real and what part's not? Well, I think lamb legs is probably real. Not sure about the Lamberts. Really on the fence about that. I think they're probably based on a group of Pineys. But I don't know. I haven't found anything yet. When you're researching criminals, it's really hard to find much information unless you go into real archives. Because unless they're famous, there's not going to be a tremendous amount of news stories on them. The 1971 murder, satanic murders are definitely real. The satanic cults, they sound pretty real. From what I've read, that sounds like there was legit some kind of cult that was wandering around the Pine Barrens at that time. Whether or not they were actually very powerful. The rumor is they were actually very powerful, and then eventually they left and moved somewhere else. But and when they were investigating, I found this hilarious. When they were investigating the murder in 1971, they called in a witch at one point. Or is that a different murder? No, that was the murder in Watchung. Sorry. Confusing my satanic murders. I read about another satanic murder, but that one's in Watchung. It came up because I was doing all these searches. But, yeah, and then the 1995 confrontation of Pineys versus Hunters sounds legit, feels legit, but I don't know if it is. Might be totally made up. Pizza Saint also sounds very legit, but that may be made up. I mean, it was interesting to see, them interview guys, and that interview would feel real. So they interviewed another pizza guy, who supposedly delivered for the same outfit. I think it was called Thunderbolt Pizza or something. That sounds definitely fake. Jim Dugan is definitely not a Piney, I don't think. He's definitely not a normal guy who started a construction business after getting fired from the glass factory. So that's definite fiction. The lamb legs and the murders are the most realistic. And as far as a dark comedy, I guess there's not a lot of real funny moments. I didn't really laugh at this movie. But I was amused by it, so I guess there's that. The 1983 murders are interesting. I'm not sure if they're based on anything. I wish there was slightly more realism in it. I have to do some more research to figure out what this stuff was based on. But that's just me. I want to use their grist for my mill as well. But I can't use the stuff they put in the movie, obviously. That's fiction. So, good job. Good job, guys. It's very rare that I'm intrigued by a movie. And when I got the link initially, I just thought, well, I'll watch it whenever. And I finally got around to doing it. And I'm glad I did. I wonder why it's on YouTube. I guess they didn't get any kind of distribution, which is kind of sad. On the one hand, I could see, I could see why they wouldn't get distribution because of that dynamic between documentary and narrative. It's tough to, it's very blurred. You know, some of it feels very real, and then some of it is obviously fake. And I'm not sure how you would. I think you needed to present it. If I would have been on this movie, I would have said to them, we should make it clear that this is a fake documentary. I think. I think they should have made it clear it was a fake documentary. You know, maybe have characters making the documentary and then end with them and lamb legs. I think that would have made it clear, but at the same time, the stuff that was real would be fine. The stuff that's real is fine. You can put real stuff, and I do it all the time in the Pineys. You can put real stuff in fiction, but I don't think you want to confuse the presentation. You know, I don't think you want to confuse the presentation with the narrative too much. Like, I tell people, I mean, it's clear to me, at least in my books, that the Pineys are fiction. You know, yes, it's based on some real stuff, but I mean, they hunt devils, so, and there's hellspawn and portals to hell open up, so it's clear that it's fiction. You know, here, the stuff that happens, other than lamb legs, is not clear that it's fiction. And lamb legs, because it's a folktale, like the Jersey Devil, it's right on that border where it's like, well, you know, the scenes with lamb legs might be something exaggerated, right? It's not that lamb legs is actually running around Millville. It's that people saw something and they're exaggerating it into the folktale, perhaps like they do with the Jersey Devil or any of the other crazy Scooby-Doo mysteries we have here in South Jersey. So if you know what I mean. These guys are pretty good. They're thinking as filmmakers, and I like that a lot. I like the music a lot. I like the cast. I like the setting. I would say if the pacing was a little tighter, and also too, they had one guy who's pretty good. He's supposed to be some older Piney, but they blot out his face, and I thought, why are they blotting out his face? Like, they should have, you know, addressed that. I think they should have had a line like, you know, why do you want us to hide your identities? Like, I don't want the Lamberts to know who I am. Like, that to me would have explained that, and it would have, you know, spun into the movie a little bit. But I'm picking as I do. So for a free movie, absolutely cannot beat it. It's Menantico Blues, right here in South Jersey near Millville and Vineland. So that's the Piney podcast special. I want to thank you for tuning in. We'll be back, of course, every Sunday with the regular Piney podcast, all things South Jersey, just like this. Anyhow, that's it for me, Tony D, and Little Joan. We'll see you in the next one.